Nisha. It was silent, so silent as I listened to the sounds of the hospital at night. Kabir looked so small under all his bandages, his face rippling with pain even as he slept. I watched his chest rise and fall and watched the medicine dripping from the IV through the plastic tube into his arm. Every time he took a breath, I was relieved, but then immediately terrified. What if that was his last breath? What if there wasn't another one? They say that right before you die, your life flashes in front of you. But watching Kabir struggling with his own survival made our life together flash in front of me, almost like someone was taking pictures and dropping them in front of me. That very first time we met, when Kabir gave me the coffee and ice cream, I barely saw the man in front of me. I was so wrapped up in my own grief. But even as the leaves are falling in autumn, you know that spring will come. It's a promise of the future, and Kabir was that for me. I loved him forever, but it wasn't until now that I realized how much. At this moment, I realized that the level of pain you feel for something proves how much it means to you. And oh, I was feeling pain. Through his kindness and patience, his heart reached out to mine, and tentatively, I took his hand, starting on a beautiful journey of happiness and love together. Your dreams don't disappear just because you lose your way, and so slowly, I allowed myself to start dreaming again. Where I thought love was a lie, he showed me it was the truth. The first time he asked me to marry him, I laughed bitterly. I didn't feel truly worthy of his love. I thought he was saving me. It took me a long time to realize that he wasn't trying to rescue me, that he actually wanted me. He loved me, quietly, patiently, and oh, how I loved him too. I recalled my pregnancy even as my body stretched out Gianna. To the point of utter discomfort, Kabir found a way to ease the pain, with his hands or his words. What I wouldn't give to hear his hearty, deep laugh right now. But here he was in front of me, wrapped in a blanket of never-ending pain. I wanted to pull him from the bed, plunge the IVs into my own arms and offer myself up to take the pain from him. If I could, I would have. Tears dripped from my eyes, saturating the mask over my nose and mouth. What would I do if I lost him? How could I go on myself? Early in the morning, I heard the door open and turned to see a nurse coming in. Silently, she checked his vital signs, noted the levels of medicine in the IV bags, and then turned to me. I think you need to take a little break, she said quietly. I shook my head. I need to stay here with Kabir. I understand, she said. Truly, I do. Your friend in the hall has been asking to see you though. Why don't I stay here while you go talk to him? I thought of Vivan, our faithful friend, keeping vigil in the hallway too, and nodded just for a few minutes. I agreed. Ask him to show you the courtyard, she suggested. A little fresh air would do you good. I pressed my fingertips to the lips behind my mask, kissed them, and brushed the kiss onto Kabir's cheek. It felt warm, and I frowned, wanting to stay. But I did want to speak with Vivan, maybe convince him to go home for a little while. I nodded to the nurse and told her I would be back in a few minutes, and then left the room, walking down the hall to the waiting area where Vivan was sitting. Although he was half asleep on the chair, he sprang to his feet when he saw me. Any change? He said, rushing to hug me. I shook my head. Nothing yet. I hate seeing him in so much pain, Vivan, I said, my voice wavering with more tears that wanted to break out. I know, he said with a sigh. I wish there was something we could do. What I can do is to take care of you for now. Do you want to get something to eat? I shook my head, nausea clawing at my stomach at the thought of food. I'm not hungry. Let's go outside then, he said. The nurse that just went into Kabir's room mentioned a courtyard. He held out his hand. I'm not taking no for an answer, he said firmly. I allowed myself to be tugged down the hall and we stepped into a beautiful, peaceful area draped with lush green plants. There was a small fountain, and even though it was hot, the shade of the trees and the moving water seemed to keep away the stolid heat. We sat on a smooth stone bench for a good half hour. I was lost in my thoughts of Kabir, but Vivan pressed on with one-sided conversation. Suddenly, the peace I felt was ripped away from me. I need to go back in, I said, standing up quickly. Something's wrong. To his credit, Vivan didn't try to placate me but stepped ahead of me to open the door. I retraced my steps back to Kabir's room, but terror froze my feet when we turned a corner and I saw the activity of people rushing in and out of his room. I looked at Vivan and his eyes were wide with fright. Kabir, I cried and started to run the rest of the way. A nurse saw me approaching and reached out to stop me. We need you to stay outside for now. No, I cried. I felt Vivan's arms circling around me. I pushed at him, trying to get up to Kabir. I need to go to Kabir. He has a high temperature, the nurse explained quickly. He started to sneeze. Please, we need space to work on him right now. Vivan pulled me aside, out of the way of the rushing medical staff. Give them room, Nisha. They need to focus all their efforts on Kabir. My legs gave out from under me and I slid to the cold floor. Vivan eased me down and then knelt beside me, glancing around to make sure we were out of the way. Kabir, I heard myself moan. What if I lose Kabir? Tears streamed down my face and I wrapped my arms around myself and started rocking slowly, back and forth, like I was rocking Gianna. With his eyes on the medical staff, he reached out and took my hand. Vivan, I choked out. What is happening? He shook his head. I don't know. He said, I'll try to find out. No, I said, please don't leave me. Okay, he said, and settled into a sitting position beside me. I clutched to his hand, squeezing tightly. My hand hurt with effort, but the pain felt good. It anchored me to the hallway. Finally, a doctor left Kabir's room, still barking out orders to the nurse. He glanced our way and started to walk over. I scrambled to my feet, Vivan doing the same. I wanted to ask what happened, but the words didn't come out. What if Kabir had died? No, I shook my head violently, tears clenching to my cheeks. My legs shook and threatened to buckle again, but Vivan held me up this time. The doctor took a deep breath and I could see the weariness in his eyes. Kabir is established again, but he has a very high fever. He started to go into a seizure. The few bits of food in my stomach churned and threatened to erupt. I pushed my hand against my mouth and started to breathe hard. I made a whining sound, horrible even to my own ears. How could I have left him? He was okay when I left. I should have stayed. I should never have gone to that stupid courtyard. I should... Fortunately, the doctor said, breaking into my thoughts. The nurse was right there, so he was in good hands. So the fever caused a seizure, I whispered. It can happen when a fever is very high. I have to warn you, although the seizure is over and we are taking steps to bring his temperature down, the situation just got even more critical. A fever often indicates an infection which can... His words trailed off, but I knew what that meant. Kabir could die. He might die and I could still lose him. I fell against Vivan. He's strong though, doctor continued, and he has a lot to fight for. I heard you have a young daughter. I nodded but couldn't speak. My throat burned and I started to shake. Our life was so good. How could that just be yanked away from us so abruptly? We added another medication to combat any infection and we will be watching him closely. If you will excuse me, I'm going to go check on him. I nodded dumbly and watched him go back into Kabir's room. Vivan tugged on my arm. Let's go sit in the waiting room so we'll be out of the way here, he suggested. He told the nurse where to find us and led me to the waiting room where he had been sleeping. How? I whispered once I was sitting down. How could all of our dreams just disappear like that? Vivan shook his head. They haven't disappeared, Nisha, he said with urgency in his voice. You have to hold on to that. My heart is breaking. I cried. I can't see any dreams right now. I just see us losing them. Like what? He asked gently. Kabir, my family. Oh God, Vivan. How can I go on if I lose him? I buried my face in my hand and started sobbing. I just can't. I felt Vivan slide to his knees in front of me and pulled my hands away. So I was forced to look at him. You have to hold on to hope, Nisha. As the rains pour down, Sometimes it seems like you'll never see the sun again, but it still comes. Even now, even now, there's one part of the night that is the coldest and the darkest, before dawn breaks. Just when we might give up on seeing the light again, the sun breaks over the horizon. Kabir will make it. He has to.